Hello and welcome to the Empowered Whistleblower Radio Show with Dawn Westmoreland. I'm your talk host with WPVM FM 103.7 in beautiful Asheville, North Carolina. You can listen to me each Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as I discuss workplace issues that affect employees and employers. I believe that employees and employers have the right to work in safe and respectful work environments. You can learn more about my work at dawnwestmoreland.org. I am so excited. I have Judge Ginger Werner today. She is the first mental health judge. And I've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. And everybody's asked me, what is a mental health judge? So in 1997, she was appointed to be a mental health judge. And she helps to decriminalize persons with mental health illnesses, neurological disorders, keeping people that should not go to jail out of jail. And we're going to talk about that because sometimes these folks also are rehabilitated so that they can work for themselves or maybe go back in the workplace. Hi, Judge Ginger. Good morning.
Good morning, Dawn. I just cannot tell you how thrilled I am to be here.
I'm excited. For our listeners, what is a mental health judge?
Sure. Well, first of all, I think that most everyone is pretty much aware of the stigma surrounding mental illness, and without going into too much detail historically, because we don't have a lot of time, U.S. jails and prisons tragically have ended up serving as our largest de facto psychiatric hospitals in the United States. And I really have to give tremendous credit to my community, really for developing such a conscience around this issue back in the early mid-90s, when we started experiencing some really serious problems in our jail system, recognizing that people with mental illnesses and other kinds of cognitive disorders, were becoming overrepresented in our jails, that there was a revolving door with people cycling in, cycling out, never getting access to care. Florida, sadly, is one of the states that is the third largest state. We have very low, inadequate funding for mental health here. And we know what happens when people can't get the treatment that they need. One thing leads to another, there's a crisis, and somebody ends up getting arrested. So the mental health court is really, I think to this day, stands as one of the most important problem-solving courts that we have in our array of problem-solving justice, meaning that we have courts now that really look to the root cause, look to resolve problems from an interdisciplinary and a collaborative vantage point. And back in 1997, my community decided we really need to do something to divert people out of an inappropriate system of care, that being a jail, to more appropriate systems of mental health care and services in the community. And the Mental Health Court in Broward was formed in June of 1997. We had no money, no budget, but I did come to the bench. I was only a judge for about 6 months when I got the call, but I did come with unique skill sets in the area of mental health.
You're only a judge. Oh my goodness. So much you've done, and you've been the leading pioneer in the mental health court. So I'm in Asheville, North Carolina, and I remember going to the Asheville Citizen Police Academy, and they talked about how different cases were referred to different people like yourself. Do you know about how many judges there are in the United States that are mental health judges, Judge Ginger?
Well, first of all, we don't call ourselves mental health court judges. For example,
Okay.
I am a criminal court judge. I have a regular county court criminal division that's for misdemeanors. And in the state of Florida, these are crimes that sentencing could be anything up to 1 year. And so the mental health court was actually started through administrative order, making it a subdivision of my regular criminal division. So I am a county court criminal judge, and I preside over a specialized mental health court.
And you also have a book, Judge Ginger. I've been reading it. I've been real busy, but I've read about a third of the book. And you talk about people coming to your court and they've been arrested and it's been misdemeanors. They've had mental health issues and such. And can you talk about a case without using names, or, you know, where somebody came and now they're so much better off because they didn't land in jail, that they got the help, the mental health care that they needed and the support?
Absolutely, I can. And before I do that, I just want to answer your prior question, Dawn, because I didn't. And I wanted to let your listeners know that there are thousands of problem-solving courts. It's really been an incredible revolution through our jurisprudential landscape, from drug courts to veterans courts to girls courts, you name it, we have it. And there's hundreds of mental health courts in the United States, around the world, and many of these courts now are integrated care from a behavioral health vantage point, meaning substance and mental health, which I'm thrilled, you know, to see. So I just wanted to answer that question. And sure, you know, we've seen, you know, really over 23,000 people in mental health court. And I really thought, you know, when I started the court, I knew the face of mental illness. I had been working in the field. I was working for what is now called Disability Rights Florida as an advocate lawyer, and doing disability rights. But truly, when the court opened, and I was even shocked myself. I mean, we have individuals from every single line and type of work, from nurses to lawyers to artists to professional athletes, accountants, you name it. We've seen people from every walk of life. And I want your listeners to know something, that this is a takeaway, if nothing else, Dawn. And that is that treatment works. That just like healthcare, physical healthcare, mental health conditions or problems are no different. That if people have, you know, particularly now with all the challenges that we're facing, you know, through the COVID-19 pandemic, and, you know, issues and challenges that people are having, you know, in their workplace, and trying to, you know, manage all of these issues. You know, people need to know, it's, you know, there is no health without mental health, and they really do need to seek care, because treatment works. And we've had countless individuals in the court go back to their workplace, you know, go back to college. I just can't even give you specific numbers, because the prevalence of recovery, you know, is just so strong. And I think that there's a lot of misconceptions around mental illness.
Yes. And, you know, I like to share, because I believe in being transparent and authentic, that, you know, I had spent 3 days in the mental health ward after being a government whistleblower about 7 years ago. And before I became successful and was able to, you know, refuse to not sign a non-disclosure agreement so I could talk and share my story, you know, it was a time when I was recovering from retaliation and harassment, extreme harassment, for 20 months. And mental health care is essential. It has to be in your toolbox every day. There is no shame in getting mental health care. At the time, I really needed it, and it helped supported me so I could get back on my feet. We all needed it sometimes.
Absolutely. And, first of all, sharing your stories, and every day in mental health court, is, as I said, it's a very different kind of court process. We wanted to take aim at stigma. We want to promote storytelling. We want, to bring mental health and recovery out in the open, no more out of sight, out of mind. And these stories, like you shared, and the pain and the anguish, and then the joy, of getting, well, and being able to help others. That's really what we spend so much time on the court, is for me, listening, validating, these experiences, and helping family members know that they're not alone.
Well, Judge, you must be a real blessing to so many families because, I've been on this earth a little while, and, I've lived all over. I've been in the Air Force 20 years. I've seen all kinds of walks of life, people and such. And I know one thing for sure is that everybody has a different capacity to manage stress. And right now we're dealing with COVID. And, I keep thinking about mental health and our military veterans. I'm retired from the Air Force, and a lot of veterans are afraid to get help, mental health care, because they're afraid, while they're active duty, they might get thrown out of the, armed forces and not be able to retire or get the benefits that they need. And so there's such a stigma where there should not be a stigma around it. How do we get more people to embrace the fact that, what is it, 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 folks
Correct.
deal with some kind of mental health crisis
Correct.
in their life? I mean, even strong people, I consider myself a strong person. We all deal with stressful times in our life. How do we get the stigma
Absolutely.
away?
Absolutely. You're right on with the data, and 1 out of 5 in the United States, 1 out of 4 if you're in the UK, will experience some kind of mental health, problem during their lifetime. And I just think that, many years ago, I had the privilege of serving on the President's New Freedom Commission on Mental Health, under George W. Bush. And and one of the mottos, that our report really emphasized is that, mental health is essential to overall health. If we are not, well, from a mental health vantage point, then we can't succeed, we can't thrive, we just can't really have a quality of life. And I feel, I don't know, in my courtroom, I almost feel, and I hate to be naive, but I really feel like we've transcended, stigma to such an important place that the culture of this courtroom is just so different. And I think that the more we talk about mental health, the more we listen to stories, the more people, just recognize that there is no difference, that healthcare is healthcare. Then I really think we, move past that. And I think that after 23 years on the bench and doing this work, my entire circuit is different in terms of attitudes. Just changing hearts and minds, about mental health just has a lot to do with talking about it, taking ownership of the fact that, people that need help really we have to get the access. And I think now the larger import is making sure that there's parity, and that there's access to care for everyone.
That's great, because, I read in your book where I think Florida has like it's the last 3 to receive funding. As far as the budget, there's not much of a budget.
We are, Florida, there's only 13 states in the United States that does not have Medicaid expansion. Florida, unfortunately, is one of those states. We are the third largest state in the United States. And we have I think everyone knows we have such a diverse population. We've got large pockets of poverty. We've got almost 1 million people that don't have insurance coverage. It's extremely difficult for people to access care because the budget for mental health is so low. I think on average, we're getting approximately 40, maybe $41, $43 per capita for mental health in the state of Florida. I have always said, Dawn, that Broward's Mental Health Court, was an innovation that came through desperation. And, we needed to do something to help people link to services and ensure that those services were effective and that the system providers were held accountable. And that is exactly what the mental health court does. And that is really promote accountability, that the quality of care is appropriate so people can get better.
So it really is a high priority, Judge Ginger, that we have mental health care accessibility.
It is.
Do you find it harder for men or for women to reach out for mental health care from your experience?
It's difficult for men. It's difficult for men. It's difficult for African American men and men of color. The culture of that we're strong, that seeking help is a weakness. Culture comes into play in the minority, in the Black community, and persons of color. But clearly, I think women are definitely more open to seeking mental health care. We're more wired to be emotional. We understand that. We're sensitive to our well-being in that regard. So I do think that there are gender differences, and of course there's also cultural differences that we must be sensitive to. And I truly believe that the mental health court, for example, is really deemed a human rights strategy. The idea that people could end up behind bars, for example, simply, Dawn, because they can't get the access to the health care that they need. That, to me, is a human right issue.
So I imagine you've worked with Congress legislation to try to change the laws or try to garner, more money for mental health care.
Yes.
How has that journey been, Judge Ginger?
It's been really exciting, frustrating at times, but I'm very proud that Broward's Mental Health Court was the model for the American Law Enforcement Mental Health Act that actually piloted mental health courts across the United States. It was passed unanimously through Congress in 2000, and it was signed by President Bill Clinton just before he left office. And so, I think advocacy is just, it's critically important for all of us to become an advocate and a champion for mental health for our children, and across the lifespan, because, now we see, as you talked about, our military, our veterans, our military family members, suffering and with high prevalence of suicide rates. And, we just all really need to step up.
So Judge Ginger, what I hear you saying is that we need to have empathy and compassion for other people, and everybody's had different experiences. We don't know what their capacity is for stress. They may snap out of it. I personally have, walked somebody out of the mental health ward that's close to me that we never ever thought would have a mental health breakdown, you know, or an issue. So it could happen at any time because we just don't know someone's capacity. Maybe they have medical issues going on or such.
Yeah, I mean, mental health, like any health issue, is universal. And so I don't think I'm a judge, but no judgment, correct, about mental health and needing mental health care. I just think that again, it is essential to overall health and being able to, as you say, Dawn, it's also about learning how, to get more tools in your toolbox. And we all need to learn. I think, that's another radio show, but that is so important to promote resiliency and well-being and take care of ourselves nutritionally and from a fitness standpoint for sure.
Absolutely. And you were talking about men have a harder time generally. I know that to be true because, I grew up with 7 brothers and stepbrothers. I spent 20 years in the Air Force, which is mostly men. And I saw how a lot of them were very stoic, afraid to talk about their emotions. Do you think that times are changing a little bit? Because I have one of my brothers is starting to open up about his feelings, his emotions, his concerns. And I'm really flattered by it because, you know, like a lot of men, he was very stoic and now he's starting to open up. And I know it has to feel good to be able to share the thoughts and feelings that are going on in his mind.
I do think times are changing for men and mental health. We see so many athletes now coming out and talking about their mental health. So many celebrities coming out, and in response to, tragic suicides and impact of football players, with head injuries and, the great special of Michael Phelps that came on for, Olympians under so much pressure, causing mental health problems. So I think all of these voices makes such a difference for men. And again, changing hearts, changing minds. It's really important to have people, first responders, share their stories. And, that's really what breaks down, if you will, according to the research, the stigma and misconceptions about mental health.
Judge Ginger, have you ever had somebody that come back to you after that released them to mental health care and they got rehabilitation? Have you ever had anybody come back and said, you've been a lifesaver, you're instrumental in helping me get back on my feet?
I have. I have. And, and it wasn't that long ago. I'll be very brief, but, all of a sudden, the doors of the courtroom, kind of popped open and in walks this woman that she just kind of sashayed, up to the bench. And as she got closer, I said, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I couldn't believe my eyes, and I'll call her Lily for the radio show. And it had been 15 years. 15
Wow,
years
Judge.
later, and she walks up to the bench, and I recognized her, and I stopped the proceedings, and I said, "Oh my gosh, it's you!" I said, "Is everything okay?" And she said, "Judge Wren, I just really wanted to come. I just wanted to come and say thank you for everything that you've done for me." And I've had so many of those kind of, messages of gratitude, and it warms my heart because I don't think I'm doing anything, really uniquely special. I just feel that I was the right person at the right time in the right place with the right passion and the right training that we don't usually get in law school. For example, to do this work. And it's been just a blessing and an incredible honor.
Wow, what a great story. Yeah, I imagine that was an emotional moment when she came in, when Lily came in.
It
Judge
was.
Ginger, what do you hope people get out of your book, A Court of Refuge? What do you hope that they get out of reading your
Thank
book?
you. Yes, A Court of Refuge, Stories from the Bench of America's First Mental Health Court. I'll hold it up briefly. And it's really written for everyone. It's
Hmm.
written for family members so they know there's hope, that treatment works, because hope is tangible. We've learned that everyone deserves dignity, that, you know, the idea of linking people, getting access to the right kind of care, evidence-based care works, and that there should be, you know, that again, you know, the book is just chock full of beautiful vignettes covering all different kinds of stories, that homelessness, that people ended up not really being homeless, but that they were missing. That I would make calls to family members from the bench saying, you know, did you know I have your son
Oh
here?
my.
And then a mother bursting out crying, going, my son has been missing, you know, for 3 years, you know, and these phone calls, you know, from the bench to family members, or teaching parents about the NAMI, excuse me, family to family educational program, and that everybody has to really dig in to learn about mental health and recovery, because we have to be able to advocate. And I think as a whistleblower, you know that we have to become educated so we can advocate for the care that our loved one needs. And this book is all about those lessons, and how we do that, and coming together really as a community to champion innovation for mental health.
Yeah. And the thing is that sometimes people cannot speak up, like you're speaking out about mental health and, not putting people away that have mental health issues for misdemeanors and such. If we have the strength, the voice, and especially the knowledge, in my case, I have 30 years in HR, and I spoke up about nepotism, racial discrimination, and it was validated later. But you're out there advocating about mental health care so that people are more aware, more educated, and you're empowering people, you're bringing families back together, and you're also getting people back on their feet so that they can have quality life. I remember reading that in your book. That's so very important, because I don't believe we were meant to just survive. We were meant to thrive in life.
Of course, those are the stories that matter, going back and getting your degrees and becoming look, living your dreams, living your best life. That's really what it's about. And before I want to emphasize what you just said, Dawn, and I don't want to leave without saying this.
Yeah, we have 1 minute, Judge.
Mental health in the workplace, a priority, a priority, a priority. And, for all CEOs, managers, directors, HR, please, mental health right now, everything.
Judge Ginger, if somebody wants to reach out to you, what is the best way?
They could Google me. My email, my judicial email, official email is all over, I think, the internet. They're welcome to do that. I'm also on Twitter at Judge Ren. We have a fabulous Twitter community for social justice and mental health and behavioral health, suicide prevention. So they can certainly reach out.
Judge Ginger, time goes so quickly. What a pleasure to get to know you better, to hear your background, and to know that there's somebody so passionate out there about mental health care. To our listeners, stay tuned every Thursday, 4:30, the Empowered Whistleblower Radio Show. Stay empowered.